This is Bob Boross, and this is my Jazz and Tap Dance Life, my video channel for information on jazz dance and tap dance. We're a little bit late getting on today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties getting Phil set in, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is happening once I bring him into the broadcast. But right now, just a quick update on the channel. It's still going great. I think the last time I did a broadcast, we had just hit 2,000 subscribers. And in that short time, we picked up another 100 subscribers in just a couple of weeks. So there's still a very big interest in what the information we're getting out, interest in jazz dance, interest in tap dance. So all of you who are subscribing, thank you for that. Keep watching, keep hitting like. Make sure that you click the notification bell so that you get a notification every time I put up a new video. Now, right now, I am working on this interview series called Preserving the Jazz Dance Heritage, where I'm trying to talk to people who have a lot of information about the history of jazz dance, theatrical, social, whatever it might be, and just to get that information out to people who are interested. So one person I know that I was affiliated with years back, we used to actually take some tap dance classes together, is Phil LaDuca. And you may know him from his dance shoe company, which is just about every top dancer everywhere and every celebrity everywhere, everybody's wearing LaDuca shoes. But Phil also had a very strong performance career and a teaching career. So we're going to talk a little bit about that first. So right now I am going to bring Phil into the broadcast. We are still having a little bit of difficulty, so we'll see how this goes. Well, we're still having a little bit of difficulty getting him on there. Let's try this one more time. Okay. Well, one of the reasons why this is tough is because right now Phil is in Da Nang, Vietnam. So we're trying to do this through his Wi-Fi signal in his hotel room there. And that's something as to why we're having a little bit of problem getting him up there. So let's see if we can try this one more time and see if he'll pick back up. I know he's working on it. We were just talking a little bit before, but as I said, he's on a Wi-Fi signal that isn't the strongest, obviously. So that's maybe why it's going in and out. So hopefully we'll get him back in just a second. But what we're talking about mostly is the aspects of jazz dance that were very strong years ago, maybe not quite seen so much as we have in today's world. And a lot of those aspects are very good dance aspects. They're very good for what we need to do in terms of being a well-rounded dancer, certainly help you if you're going into theatrical dance. And so I'm just trying to talk to people who will have information on that. One of the main people that I worked with is a man named Matt Maddox. I don't know if you can see right there, that's a poster of Matt Maddox on the back, and the one on, oops, I'm trying to figure it out. On this side was from the 2004 Jazz Dance Forum held in Paris, France. So actually that's Matt right there along with Donald McHale. And there's myself right up in there. But Matt was somebody who definitely contributed to jazz dance, not only in the United States, but all throughout Europe in his very big and varied career. So I think Phil is kind of coming back there. Let's see if we can add him to the stream. There he is. Hey. Phil, are you there?
I am. It's great to see you, Bob.
Okay. Great to you kept me tap dancing for a while. As you look back there, see my poster? Keep calm and tap dance.
There you go.
I picked up in a Goodwill store about 2 weeks ago for $4.99, and it's suited right now to the T. Well, it seems to be better now. I'm hearing your voice, and your picture is a little bit better. So welcome, wonderful. Phil LaDuca.
My pleasure, Bob. It's always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Sure. Now, you are, again, just to talk a little bit about why we're having some of these issues, where are you right now?
I am overseas in Asia, and currently in Vietnam. So that is why we're having these issues. And my apologies to you and your fabulous guests, and I'm thrilled that you're all there, and I'm thrilled that I'm on the show and you can hear me and see me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is just amazing that I actually am sitting in my second bedroom in my condo in New Jersey, talking to you in Vietnam, broadcasting this to anybody technically in the world who wants to tune in. So the technology is unbelievable today. So, I mean, everybody, at least right now, knows you from LaDuca shoes. And
Yes.
you certainly have a high visibility due to that. But that didn't just come out of thin air. You certainly had a beginning to your dance career and many great people you worked with throughout that jazz dance continuum. So maybe you could go a little bit about first how you got into dancing and some of the people who really influenced you, particularly in a jazz dance sense.
Absolutely. As you say, no one starts from when people know of you. Many people are very unaware of the fact that I was a dancer before a dance shoe designer. And
Mm-hmm.
so my career started very early. As you very well know, we both go way back to Chicago. I had started in really my jazz dance career kicked off when I went into Lou Conte and Hubbard Street Dance Company
Okay.
for
Yeah.
theater dance. Now, the I had started ballet earlier with Stone and Cameron Ballet in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and realized that if I wanted to get into more of a concert stage dancing and utilize the more musicality, that Lou Conte was my first great influence in regard to jazz and tap dance. Lou was a phenomenal performer himself and choreographer extraordinaire. Hubbard Street Dance Company is just brilliant, and the influence was large on me. Truth be told, I was never good enough to be in the first company. I was there at the beginning of the Hubbard Street Dance when they began and apprenticed with them, but was never up to that level. And it's because I started dance very late at 19
Mm-hmm.
years old
Mm-hmm.
and just really didn't have the chops for it. But because I sang in rock and roll bands earlier and had a voice, it was suggested to me to go into musical theater. And I
I
didn't know
see.
anything about musical theater, but Bob Brizzo was also
Mm-hmm.
with me at Hubbard Street Dance at the early days. And Bob said he was going down to Muni Opera in St. Louis for a audition for summer stock. And so I joined him and some of the gals from Hubbard Street, and we went down, and I did Brigadoon that year at Hubbard Street, or down at Muni Opera. And Sharon
Mm-hmm.
Halley, the fabulous choreographer at Muni Opera, thank you, Sharon, hired me, gave me my equity card. And from there, I met many people from New York who invited me to New York. And once I got to New York, that really kicked off where I began musical theater. There I was introduced to Lee Theodore and
Mm-hmm.
American Dance Machine, and they were my first
Right.
job in New York City. And talk about influence. The people that I was introduced through Lee Theodore, who of course was the original Anybody's on West Side Story for Jerome Robbins. She assisted Jerome for The King and I and for many other high button shoes. And through American Dance Machine, I was able to dance with such incredible people like Chita Rivera and Ann Rankin
Mm-hmm.
and Wayne Salento. Just goes on of the amazing people that I had
Mm-hmm.
Danny Daniels, Patty Birch, Ona White. Being in New York at that time, the influences, of course, uh, Michael Bennett, Bob Fosse, Jerome Robbins, taking classes, auditioning, working, doing workshops with these people. Bob Audie was
Mm-hmm.
another really bright spot for me that gave me inspiration and taught me. Phil Black taught me how to be a Broadway performer. Bob Audie taught me how to be a song and dance man.
Okay.
That so that's those were the major influences really to begin with for me. Lou
Mm-hmm.
Conte, Bob Audie, Phil Black, Lee Theodore, And then I had the great fortune to dance for Agnes deMille, my first Broadway show for Agnes deMille, and then
Great.
Twyla Tharp as the understudy to the Gene Kelly role, understudy to
Mm-hmm.
Don Correa in Singing in the Rain for
Singing in the Rain.
Boross,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Graciela Daniele.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
That's
those were my
a
early influences.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see. You mentioned Lee Theodore, and I know that because I studied with Lee Theodore at the American Dance Machine also. This is maybe something that a lot of people do not know about. And so I've got a little clip playing here. Can you tell me, like, what was the American Dance Machine? And tell us a little bit about Lee Theodore and what she did and what she was like.
What was incredible about working with American Dance Machine were all the influences that you were able to take in through all the fabulous choreographers and just the daily classes. You would have
Mm-hmm.
40s one day, 50s the next day, 60s, Jerome Robbins, Bennett Fosse, all of
Mm-hmm.
those different styles. And of course, we all go back to the fountainhead, Jack Cole, who Lee
Mm-hmm.
Theodore was very much a disciple of Jack Cole. And
Right.
when Verdon and Cheetah Rivera, working with them through American Dance Machine, you're able to go back. And of course, a great personal mentor for you, Matt Maddox,
Mm-hmm.
was also very much
Mm-hmm.
involved, and we had a lot of his
Mm-hmm.
influence through. So Jack Coleman and
Mm-hmm.
Matt Maddox was very strong, and we were always doing different styles: Charleston, Latin, ballroom, as
Mm-hmm.
well as contemporary or classical jazz. So all of the different influence, Danny Daniels, the clog dance from Walking Happy, I've forgotten the show. But we would do a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
as you remember, a lot of obscure numbers like the whip dance from Destry Rides Again. Those kinds of the Shriner ballet from Bye Bye Birdie, getting those roots and heritage to see
Mm-hmm.
where our dance heritage came from and to have it from the people that actually were the founders and the people that set what
Mm-hmm.
jazz dance or what American jazz dance is today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I studied with Lee and for a couple of years, and this was at Harkness House on the Upper East Side in New York. And she was one tough cookie. She
Yeah.
did not mess
Oh,
around. Half the time, she was, how tall was she? Not barely five or five
oh,
foot one, probably weighed
exactly.
95 pounds, and she would knock you out, in a slugfest, no problem. And half the time she was teaching with the cigarette in her mouth,
Uh-huh.
and she had no mercy. It was like, you
No.
do it full out, you do it right, or what the hell are you doing here? And she had ways of talking. I know because that was when I was first starting too, and I was like much more muscular. I had big thighs, and I could dance, but I didn't look like a dancer. I wasn't long and slim. And she told me once, she says, "You're a choreographer's dream. You're a dancer who doesn't look like a dancer." And all I know
Mm.
is I wanted to be a dancer. So she was trying to say something nice to me, I guess, but at the same time, she was, telling me that I really did not fit in with what she was talking about in terms of dancing. But the American Dance Machine was uh, an amazing entity. Oops, I need to.
It was a definite fertile
Yeah,
ground for so
right,
many dancers and so many
right.
people that I still keep
Mm-hmm.
in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right that Lee Theodore was the toughest female that I ever worked with.
Mm-hmm.
She took no prisoners, and it's because of choreographers and teachers like that. Lee Theodore, Phil Black, as you know, had
Mm-hmm.
an incredible reputation. Phil Black would kick you out of the studio. He
Yes.
would throw his drumstick at you
Yes.
if you
Yes.
missed the step. So they
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
now I'm not saying that those were the good old days that they should bring them back
Right.
because things have changed. But that discipline and that dedication and you had to be so on top of your game
Mm-hmm.
really kind of we were heated like metal and beaten into shape
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
actually. So
Yeah,
Now,
there was an
I
immediate
can
there was an
go ahead.
immediacy to the classes because it was like you need to do it now, you need to be here, you need to be present, and I don't have time for to wait for you to develop. It's like get it, step up, do it now. So that expectation of pushing you could be uncomfortable, but it's
Mhm.
really what formed people, which made them strong and made them much better than kind of holding the hand and taking people and just being very easy. And I can remember I didn't study a lot with Phil, just a few classes, but my very first class in New York was with Phil Black in November of 1975. And first I was at Farnworth and Howard, and Charles Kelly was
Yes, yes.
teaching there, but
Tom
it
Farmer,
was
Chuck
yeah, and
Berry.
it was too advanced for me, and I went down to Phil Black's, and there was a class there. Well, I mean, I was very beginner, had like 2 months of dancing, and you had to go across the floor, and he had a whole choreographed routine of what you
Series,
did
yeah.
across the floor, and obviously I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and he yelled at me. He says, "What the hell are you doing out there? You look like a goddamn bluebird." That was my intro to dancing in New York. You look like a goddamn bluebird out there. Well, anyway, hung it out, and obviously have improved over the years. But like, you wouldn't get people say that to you these days. And it wasn't that they were
No,
being
no.
mean, they were just being truthful. And like you said, it's right now, the immediate thing, get it, do it now.
And
I'm not
Bob,
going to hold your
the
hand through.
exactly what you're saying is something to kind of dovetail into what we've transitioned into teachers and choreographers from performers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I learned as once I turned that page and became a teacher and a choreographer is that those people weren't being mean, they weren't being horrible people. As you say, the immediacy is what the urgency, which
Mm-hmm.
as young dancers, we thought we were immortal and we're going to dance forever. Those people know there's a finite time for your
Mm-hmm.
dance life, and you better get
Mm-hmm.
it together because that
Mm-hmm.
time goes by in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you learn, and that's what I want to tell
Mm-hmm.
dancers now, that once you're dancing, when somebody is seemingly hard or strong on you, it's not because they don't like you, it's because they
Mm-hmm.
see the potential in you and they don't want you
Mm-hmm.
to waste it. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get that until I became a choreographer teacher and
Mm-hmm.
became frustrated with dancers with potential that are wasting it like I did for so many years. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I would have gotten it earlier. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to impress upon young dancers now that you don't waste the time that you have because it is fleeting and it goes by very
Mm-hmm.
quickly. Take advantage of it. Sweet
Mm-hmm.
bird of youth.
Okay, so you work with so many great people, from Lou Conte on to Agnes deMille to Lee Theodore to Bob Audie, some of these great people. So now you're teaching on your own. Well, actually, let's backtrack first. All right, you got to say something about your performance career because you've been in a bunch of Broadway shows. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Broadway. It really is the great white way in so many ways, and you become a Broadway baby, and
Mm-hmm.
you're on top of the world. When I came to New York in 1979, it was Candyland. You had so many incredible teachers to choose from. As you had said, Chuck Kelly, there's Frank Hatchett, and Michael Shawn, and Chris Chadman, and
Mm-hmm.
everywhere you went, you threw a stick, and there was a dance teacher. There was a studio.
Mm-hmm.
So that time to be in New York was truly amazing. And I was there in '79, and I my first Broadway show was Brigadoon for Agnes deMille in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And to start off with a legend is incredible. She is part
Mm-hmm.
of our history. She is part of the reason that musical theater actually transitioned into what it is today. Where, for those who may not know, Agnes deMille is the first choreographer who actually put dance into the show as a way of progressing the plot rather than as a break for the principal actors to bring on the dancing girls
Mm-hmm.
while they
Sure.
have a a drink of water. They actually, the choreography for her for Oklahoma was the first to actually utilize choreography to
Mm-hmm.
tell the story, to keep
Mm-hmm.
furthering it. So working with someone like her was just unbelievable in the first place, to be able to sit and listen to her and then to have the
Mm-hmm.
dances and have her work with you and how to actually interpret
Mm-hmm.
that was a gift. The next show that I was able to work with was Pirates of Penzance with Graciela Daniele.
Mm-hmm.
Graciela Daniele was and is one of our best choreographers. The Her biggest attribute that I believe that Graciela is that Graciela's choreography is so seamless that you don't
Mm-hmm.
actually know you're watching a dance. It
Mm-hmm.
is like watching a moving painting, and that storytelling was so different for me that she literally choreographed a show from beginning to end, and it wasn't kicks and ball changes.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned from Graciela was that if you were a character in a show, and that show either a pirate, a Penzance, or a Keystone Cop, one of the policemen, that you actually became a character, then the moves you did were all true because you were in character. So I learned acting in dance
Mm-hmm.
through Graciela. The
Mm-hmm.
third biggest influence for me in Broadway show that I had done was Singing in the Rain, which, of
Mm-hmm.
course, now a little bit backstory with Singing in the Rain. When I first came to New York, I auditioned for Dancing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Sure.
for Mr.
Bob
Fosse,
Fosse. Yes.
and they wanted to hire me, and it was going to be the replacement for the Wayne Cilento slot of singing
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bojangles, and there was a tap break in Sing Sing Sing. And I came from being a ballet boy jazz dancer,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not know how to tap dance. And so I was so angry that I lost that job to dance for Bob Fosse and dancing,
Mm-hmm.
that I dedicated myself, a total novice to tap dancing, that I so dedicated myself, which is anger is a good motivator in that
Mm-hmm.
regard,
Mm-hmm.
that it motivated me so much that I became the understudy for the Gene Kelly role of Singing in the Rain on Broadway. Otherwise, I
Great.
never would have become a tap dancer.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another lesson for dancers out there. It's wonderful to keep progressing your forte, but
Mm-hmm.
it's even better to improve your weaknesses to become an overall performer, because you never know what
Mm-hmm.
opportunity is going to come up. So if you are tap, jazz, and of course, as we all know,
Mm-hmm.
ballet is the foundation for all dance. So if you have those three attributes, you're more than likely going to work and work on that voice as well.
Mm-hmm.
So singing in the
Mm-hmm.
rain was another layer to the texture of working with Twyla. Her improvisational technique was very foreign to me, just like Brenda Buffalino's tap
Mm-hmm.
classes were
Yeah.
very impromptu. And it was a different way. We came from ballet where things were very strict and rigid. And now it was throw that out. Just go with the moment. Just let it happen. And you're kind of trying to do an attitude or an arabesque, and no, 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 no. I want you to dance, and you think you are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a different way of thinking, a different way of moving. It's internal. So I learned from Twyla that things that dance for her comes from the internal out, whereas all the other forms of many of the other teachers
Mm-hmm.
that I had was it came from the outside on the physical body, and that's how
Mm-hmm.
you presented dance. So that is the wonderful thing about all these different people: the character, the internal, the acting wise, telling stories. that make a different dancer. And those are the
Mm-hmm.
things that I pass on. As an example, in my
Mm-hmm.
classes when I teach, I will start off the class and I don't pick the music. I'll just come into the class, a master class, and no matter if it's in Rome or Pineapple Studio or Broadway Dance Center in New York, or I'm going to Mexico, I'll be going to go to China, and what I will do, I will just go into a class and pick up the vibes from the people, the energy there, and I'll put
Mm-hmm.
on a piece of music, and I'll stand in front of them, and I'll say, just follow along with me like a pied piper. And that's what Walter
Mm.
Cameron, who was 84 years old when I started to take class with him, Walter Cameron would stand in the middle of the room. We would stand in a circle around him, and he would tell the pianist, give me a mazurka. And he would start to do a mazurka, and we had to imitate him, and then a
Mm-hmm.
polonaise. And we just had to, or a Charleston. So I have started off my classes, and it's also a way when you're new, people are stiff and they want to impress and they tense up. So I put on music. They did a bad, bad thing. They did a bad, bad thing. And I would just put on something that moves me and it relaxes everybody, and they don't know it
Mm-hmm.
that they're warming up, and I'm incorporating isolations and head rolls. And so rather than impose a discipline on them, it's let's
Mm-hmm.
just dance. And then I'll go
Mm-hmm.
across the floor of doing steps again. I'll put on tequila,
Mm-hmm.
or low rider, a low rider, ba da
Mm-hmm.
da 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 bum bum, and all the different styles too that they don't think necessarily are theater dance. They
Mm-hmm.
realize that it's all theater, all dance is theater. So that's the way I love to do my classes. And we don't have to pull out ballet bars. We don't have to do tendus and dégagés, or, of course, they're incorporated in the steps, whether they be a box step, whether they be a pas de bourrée. But it's kind of sneaking it in. It's sneaking vitamins into their kids' food, and they don't know they're getting
Mm-hmm.
good things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a little bit different approach. As you said, a lot of times teachers can come with the idea of, here's the exercise, here's the shape, practice, 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 practice. And as you said, it's a little bit from the outside in. In terms of jazz dance and the musicality of jazz dance, that sense of getting the feeling from the music and letting that feeling come from inside out and inform what the body parts are doing. That's a little bit different approach that isn't, we like, for us, I think we kind of took it for granted. When you grew up listening to music from the 60s and the 70s, there was just it gave you a way of movement. And from hearing it, it was internalized into you. And today, I don't know if students actually get that. Maybe they get something different, but they don't get what we used to get. So to make an approach for your class that says we're starting from, a moving feeling sort of thing, rather than, okay, let's stand in first position and here's the tendu and here's the arms that go with it. That's a whole different ball of wax in terms of how the dancer will respond. Now, you've taught a lot internationally. Is that something that people all over respond to that way? Is it just
It's
something
great.
innate in a person that everybody gets it, no matter what culture they're from?
Oh, what is so fun about it, Bob, is that I'll put on Sing Sing Sing, which to me is the
Mm-hmm.
greatest jazz dance
Mm-hmm.
song music ever created. And I'll put this music on, and of course, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls from Ireland. I did a
Mm-hmm.
workshop in Belfast, Ireland, and putting on Sing 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 for these young gals over in Ireland that, of course, never heard this before.
Mm-hmm.
They never heard this music before, and to see their reaction to this, and for them to light up, it is as if it's the first time that they've ever seen
Mm.
Fantasia from Disney. It is so new to them, but
Mm-hmm.
the song is 70 years old. and yet to them it's like Frozen 2. So to
Mm-hmm.
introduce a whole new generation into that kind of music, or as you say, another thing I love to do when I do longer workshops is I'll break them up and we'll do 40s or 50s, and I'll do a 60s class. Now, a 60s class a lot of times will be considered what we did, as you yourself will remember from Lee Theodore.
Mm-hmm.
60s class was generally meant Jerome Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
From me, growing up on the south side of Chicago in the 60s, it was Four Tops,
Mm-hmm.
Temptations, Sam and
Mm-hmm.
Dave, the Supremes. So I teach a 60s class that is Shing-a-Ling and
Mm-hmm.
Boogaloo and Watusi and
Mm-hmm.
Popcorn. And again, these children in, whether it be in Mexico, whether it be in Rome or London, they didn't grow up with this. They didn't see this style of dance, which is why it's wonderful. Our dear friend Sergio Trujillo, Ain't Too
Mm-hmm.
Proud to Beg, the
Mm-hmm.
show is so fabulous and so wonderful. That 60s style. So again, introducing, and that type of, now prior to Ain't Too Proud to Beg and Jersey Boys, really that style of dancing that I'm talking about, the shing-a-ling, the watusi, the mashed potato, those were called social dancing. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
theater dance.
Right.
So it's wonderful that you would do a 60s class with that again, not to look for people who are going to become musical theater dancers, but to teach young children to just love dancing and let
Mm-hmm.
them decide if they
Mm-hmm.
want to go into professionally, which is why, for my approach, you are a fabulous technician. I've seen many of your videos, and from St.
Thank you.
Petersburg, Russia, and you are a great technician, and you pass on that discipline, which is needed. If I'll go in and do a master class of maybe two or four in a weekend, but I won't stay at a place for 10 days, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where someone like yourself, you lay the groundwork for
Mm-hmm.
them of the body work and the
Mm-hmm.
positions and the foundation. What I do is I come in and I give them a a drape. Over we paint over that base, that foundation, and
Mm-hmm.
put different colors on it. But I what's fun for me is that I get to paint. It is because you, dancers and choreographers and teachers like yourself, have already painted that picture. And I
Mm-hmm.
just come on and brush different colors in it. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes it a lot easier for me that I come in later and just
Mm-hmm.
say, let's just dance. Don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
the the technique for now. It's important, and if you want to dance, of course, but I'm not here to do technique with you right now. I'm here to just show you different styles and different ways of dance. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why, with my good fortune of having LaDuca shoes, I can afford to go to places and pick and choose and just do a master workshop and not have to go in for a week or two and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we're going to do set classes like this. So I get to pick and choose, which is nice for me. And it's different, and it helps, I believe, and many of the teachers and the places that I go to, they they will say what was wonderful about it. I will say the same things they're saying,
Mm,
but
right.
as you know, after a while, dancers kind of turn it off or they kind of tune it out. But if
Mm-hmm.
somebody comes in differently and says it a little different, it's kind of a light goes off, and a lot of teachers
Mm-hmm.
are like, I've been saying that for years, and you
Exactly.
come in and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, like all of a sudden they never
Right.
heard it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what you're saying is definitely a necessary thing in terms of how a dancer responds to music, or what we would call pop music, or something of our times. Because even if we think of what jazz dance is, it really still came from the root of social jazz dances from the 1920s and the 1930s, and then it was mixed with ballet and modern through the 40s and 50s, and then incorporated the 60s movements, things like that. But the root of it is still that what we call vernacular movement style, and that is something that is not given quite as much today. Like, we start right off with teaching, let's do a turn, let's put our arms here, what is my trick, what is my illusion, and rather than saying, no, what is the movement foundation of that rhythmic aspect, and having that in the body first. So maybe for a lot of people today, it's like such a fresh experience, where for us from an older time period, it's like, no, that's a no-brainer. We know where it started from. We know where it came from. So that's interesting that you're able to do that and bring that approach, rather than to say, no, I'm coming in and I'm giving you Luigi's class, or I'm giving you this other very structured thing. I do want to talk a little bit about, because you've had some history teaching in St. Petersburg,
Yeah.
Russia, of which I have been there also. And actually, I don't know if you can see this. I am drinking out of my St. Petersburg cup, jazz
Uh,
in St. Petersburg from 2002 from Vadim and Natalia there. So,
Natalia.
what is your connection there? What happened that brought you to St. Petersburg, Russia, many years ago?
Wow, it has to be over 20 years now, I guess. The I was teaching in Vienna, and Natalia took my class, and Natalia Kasparov, Vadim's wife, Natalia was this just gorgeous little dancer with
Hmm.
phenomenal technique, and she picked up my style so quickly, so effortlessly, and I had no idea that she actually was a choreographer and had a company, Canon Dance
Hmm.
Company in St. Petersburg. So she invited me to come to St. Petersburg, and I taught jazz there. I was the first American jazz teacher
Hmm.
in St. Petersburg, and I, I don't think Russia per se, but certainly St. Petersburg.
Yeah. Do you know what year that was approximately?
I'm going to say probably, oof, it has to be in somewhere between 1995 and 1997, I
Hmm.
think, because I
Hmm.
actually had been teaching for about 10, 12 years prior to that in uh, Budapest, Hungary, for
Hmm.
a summer workshop, IDMC. It was called International Dance Music Center that was my big introduction. I had taught in Munich and in Dusseldorf and Switzerland, Vienna, but moving into Poland and Hungary and then into St. Petersburg was another switch, was wonderful introduction for me to show at the time what we would refer to as the East Bloc countries
Hmm.
and Soviet Union,
Hmm.
to show them what American jazz dance, funky jazz, and theater dance
Hmm.
were. Was introducing something new to not just a new generation, but most of the children and the youngsters right now, they don't realize, just like they have no idea that we didn't have mobile phones when we grew up.
Hmm.
they, these people on the East Bloc countries, they didn't have the influence of American music, American dance, the culture. So they had it was the black market, You get the
Mm-hmm.
needles on in the black market and those kinds of things. So introducing American jazz and theater jazz to them was akin to, I would assume, missionaries going in and saying there's a new way of looking at things. It was just opening
Mm-hmm.
up a new avenue for these people. And it's been many years since I've been back to St. Petersburg. I have not been able to make it back, not even to dance in the studio named after me,
Mm-hmm.
it's, which is an incredible honor. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
believe that
Mm-hmm.
Vadim and Natalia would do
Mm-hmm.
that. Such a great honor. Well,
Right.
a story through St. Petersburg. They asked me to teach when I was there at the theater school at in St. Petersburg, outside of Canon Dance. And when I went to teach there at the oldest theater school in Europe, at the time it was, I believe, 175 years old, and the I went to teach a tap dance class, and most of the students had ballet slippers. They didn't have tap shoes, and they also did not have hard shoes. So
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing. These people were going back 20, 25 years ago, that they didn't even know that they needed hard shoes, and they didn't care. They wanted to take the class, and I said, you can't tap dance in ballet slippers. But that's how hungry they were for American jazz and tap dance, that they would dance in ballet slippers and a tap in a
Mm-hmm.
ballet a tap class in ballet slippers. And see
Mm-hmm.
this, here we are in St. Petersburg.
Yes, and this was the Phil DeLuca Broadway Dance Center, I believe, was the name of the
Yes.
studio. So this is when I taught here, I guess about 2016. But that's the studio named after you.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
I understand what you're saying. There was a tremendous fortitude in the dancers in Russia, because in
Oh,
the original studio that I taught at, which was kind of behind where the Mariinsky Theater is,
yes,
it was
yes,
up on
yes.
the fourth floor, and
Mm-hmm.
the floor itself was all
Yep.
wavy.
Yep.
There were no
The big.
beautiful mirrors. They were a big series of like 2 foot by 3 foot mirrors, just blocked one against each other. It had a marley floor, but it was all full of waves and pockmarks. But yet the way they danced was unbelievable. The way they danced was just amazing. So yeah, they really had from here, from the inside, which is we don't quite, because they had nothing. They had nothing, and this was everything to them. And that's Lyra right there in the front. Okay. All right. I am going to remove this right now. Phil, you have frozen on me, so let me see if I can get you back here. All right. It looks like we may have lost Phil because we had to. Oh, let's see. We'll try one more time. Well, we've lost Phil for a second. Oh, let's see if he's coming back. But yes, teaching in Russia was definitely an experience for me in terms of a different mentality and attitude and openness. There, are you back?
Hello, sir.
There
Sorry,
we are.
stepped out for a drink. Unfortunately, sorry. The unfortunately, yes,
Happy.
again,
It's
the
actually happy hour
situation.
where you're at, not here, but it's a happy hour there. Yeah. So
As you
okay.
were saying, the as we saw from that, the they are in for and do they have no fears.
Mm-hmm.
What I also love about the dancers over there is their focus. they're totally into you. There's
Mm-hmm.
no chatting, there's no hanging in the back. Every one of them is very
Mm-hmm.
intent and wanting to learn and wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of times you'll teach some classes where a lot of students are just meandering about or whatever. So the focus that they provide over there was really
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we do have some people who are watching live right now, and for those people, and if you have questions for Phil, there's a sidebar there where you can put in a question or a comment, anything. So please, feel free to interact. This should be something where we're all talking to each other and not just the two of us. So now, with everything that you've done, all these great people you work with, all the experience you've had, obviously you could have continued with a very successful career as a teacher and a choreographer, but you made this side move into making dance shoes. What made that happen, and how has that changed what you're doing in terms of supporting jazz dance?
Well, again, another lesson learned that I try to teach people is look at the silver lining. Look at my career as a performer. When I was starting to dance in Chicago with Hubbard Street, one of the reasons that I was unable to make it to the first company is that very early on, I tore my knee out and I had to have
Mm-hmm.
knee surgery. I split my meniscus. I had to have major reconstructive knee
Wow.
surgery. So my ballet career was gone. That's why people suggested that I go into musical theater because I could sing as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I wouldn't have had that injury, I probably wouldn't have gone into theater or jazz with Lou Conte and then Muni Opera and then Broadway. So without that, I wouldn't have gone into musical theater. Then I did a production in 87, 89 of Me and My Girl doing Bill Snipson. I did
Mm-hmm.
3 tours playing Bill Snipson, and it was my favorite role. I got to tap dance on tables and kick buckets of champagne off the tables.
Mm-hmm.
Pratt salts, coming up with a derby on my head. I learned hat tricks,
Mm-hmm.
cape tricks, uh, all. It was phenomenal. But I literally it's about a 2 hour. I was on stage 2 hours and 20 minutes. And one night
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a lift for the Dream Ballet, and they had the dry ice and the condensation made the floor slippery. And as I was doing a lift with Sal, the Lamont, lifted her and I slipped, and instead of dropping her, which was gallant of me, but holding on to her and that weight pulling me as I twisted, I popped the disc out of my back, and I
Oh.
I finished the show. I had a slip disc. I couldn't in the wings. I couldn't bend down to tie my shoe. On stage, I was doing pratfalls and dancing on tables, and so I popped the disc out of my back.
Mm.
Had to have back surgery, and I thought I can't keep doing this and going through all this all the time. So I went. I had to have surgery, and then what I did was from the back surgery, I thought, how am I going to keep doing this? And that's when I had the idea of the dance shoe, of saying maybe I could try that, having been on Broadway. When I went to get my shoes for the show, custom made, and I said, I can't point my foot in the shoe because
Mm-hmm.
in Bob Audie's class, we would do ballet steps. We
Mm-hmm.
actually, because Bob was a disciple of Draper, so
Paul Draper.
we would the training and realize what we were missing in was the ability, because the character shoes had full shanks and hard
Mm-hmm.
so couldn't, and yet they were asking us to do double tour on layers and grand jetés
Mm-hmm.
in street shoes, basically, and character shoes. So that idea germinated with me until I popped the disc out of my back and said, I can't keep doing this the rest of my life. Let me think about what else I
Mm-hmm.
should try to do while I recuperate. And that is why I say necessity is the mother of invention. That without the back
Mm-hmm.
injury, I would not have started shoes. Even though something tragic or traumatic happens in your life and you think, oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
over, I don't want to go on, my life's a mess, realize you have to tough 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 to tough.
Okay, Phil, we're having a little problem with the audio. I don't know if you can hear me. We may have to remove you and see if I can bring you back. As I stated before in the beginning, Phil is actually right now in Da Nang, Vietnam, and we are trying to connect with him there through a Wi-Fi connection in his hotel room. So that's a little bit difficult right now, and he probably has to restart. If not, we'll probably just wind up this interview right here. Unfortunately, I hope that we get him back so we can at least say goodbye at this point. But I think what Phil was talking about is a lesson to people is a lot of times life as a dancer throws obstacles at you, particularly with uh, injuries. And there are different things that you can do. You may have a certain desire to dance in a certain way, but maybe something's telling you, no, that's not going to work for who you are, what your body is, what your look is, etc. And it's by being open to the universe and what's out there, you might find actually a great direction. Let's see. Here we are. Are we back?
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, you're like running out for another drink. I guess it's a really good happy hour.
It just
Yeah.
keeps dropping. This is I have to laugh,
Mm-hmm,
Bob. This is
mm-hmm,
what live theater is.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do you think
So that
jazz shoes should
transition of
evolve
something
again? If it,
negative that
yeah.
happens,
Okay.
look at what
Mm-hmm.
fabulous things can come out of it. From having had back surgery, which is an incredibly traumatic
Mm-hmm.
and pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the end of your dance career. But when I look back on it, I was 45 years old at the time. So to have had a 25-year dance career up to that point
Mm-hmm.
was phenomenal. Most dancers, they're lucky if they have a 10-year career. So
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate. And now I'm able to still teach and choreograph and with the shoes. So I've been twice blessed
Mm-hmm.
with the opportunity. Let me add that what makes LaDuca shoes is the fact of having had those injuries, having danced on Broadway, having danced for Lou Conte and for Agnes deMille and Lee Theodore, having had all of those influences, having known what dancers go through, the injuries. Mikhail Baryshnikov broke his ankle on stage and finished the ballet. The
Mm-hmm.
show must go on. But my realization that the dance shoes were not only not helping the dancers, but they were
Mm-hmm.
hindering and causing
There you go.
injuries to
Okay.
dancers. So that realization is what catapulted and started LaDuca shoes. And the greatest, the humblest attributes that I've been given is many of the incredible dancers like the Elizabeth Parkinsons and the Desmond Richardsons have said to me that I have helped prolong their careers. Laurie
Mm-hmm.
Kenyak said that she would not have had the career she had without LaDuca shoes. That is such a great honor to me, and that is
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's an interesting way. We talk about preserving the jazz dance legacy and heritage as maybe, well, I'm continuing to teach the technique of one of the prior masters, that sort of thing. But you have a whole different way of contributing to how people can continue to do this art with shoes that are specially designed to allow you to be the best that you can be and to inform what's necessary from the artwork that we're doing. So that's a great thing. I'm going to try to throw a question up here, and it's
please.
from Claire. I know Claire, and I'm not totally sure. What do you think jazz should keep while evolving in the future? So maybe, are there certain qualities of jazz dance from the past that are intrinsic that we still need to see as jazz moves into its future forms with new people taking up the baton?
Comment ça va, Claire? Thank you.
Hmm.
It's nice of you to join us. For, my thoughts on that, Claire, would be that, like a tree, as it grows, it offshoots branches, and those different branches, it keeps the same roots, but the branches are different. And I would like to see jazz dance continue with those branches from the same roots, from the same tree, and see
Hmm.
the different evolution in those. And we are seeing it today, I think, strongly in certain areas. It took a long time, and it was something that we didn't readily recognize, that hip hop would actually evolve into a disciplined dance. It was came up as a street dance, as a social
Hmm.
dance, and we didn't recognize it at the time, that it actually, because we didn't think of it as a dance per se, for a stage, because it didn't have a discipline as we thought of as jazz or ballet or
Hmm.
ballroom. And I think that evolution, Claire, where hip hop and street tone lock and breaking have become integrated into jazz dance, and I think that's where we're going, and I strongly encourage that.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So, Phil, let's wrap this up. You've had this incredible career that sort of came out of nowhere, and different things have happened to you physically that pointed you in different directions. But between, dancing in so many incredible roles on Broadway, teaching all over the world, and creating your dance shoe company, which has affected thousands and thousands and thousands of dancers. You've really had a major impact on the field, not
Thank
just
you.
in terms of what they're going to wear, but in terms of what they do, and how they learn, and how those ideas of the past are brought into what the young dancers are getting now, and maybe they don't even know it. They don't even know where these aspects came from.
Yes.
So I think what we're doing now is we're waiting for the book to come out, Phil. All of your experiences, a lot more detailed information on working with Agnes deMille and Twyla Tharp, and particularly Lou Conte. As somebody who, a lot of people have heard about Twyla Tharp, et cetera, but not that many people, probably outside of Chicago, know of Lou Conte and what his effect was, and how many people he trained, and how he started
Incredible.
the Hubbard Street Dance
Yeah,
Company, etc. So he's really a figure that needs a lot more visibility and
absolutely.
honors, I think, in terms of what he's doing. But well, are you going to be back in the New York area anytime soon? Are you going to be teaching in this area?
I actually am going to be in New York in March, and I'm probably going to be teaching a master class at. Uh, Thank you, Claire. Lovely to hear back from you. uh, I'm going to be probably doing a master class in March. I'm going to do in Mexico City, and from there I'm going to
Hmm.
fly to New York to see the opening of Six, of coming over from London. I've done the boots for the Six Queens,
Hmm.
the wives of Henry VIII, a fabulous show. It's going to be a huge hit. It's phenomenal. March 12th, I'll be there opening night. and I will be staying. We're going to do a protege of mine, Matthew, uh, is who is Bjork Lee's assistant.
Hmm.
Matthew is going to teach a class at. Look at that! These interviews are priceless. Thank you, guys. Isn't that fabulous?
Hmm.
Matthew's going to teach, and I'm going to be there with Bjork Lee and Donna McKechnie at Centers
Great.
March 15th to do a class. Matthew's going to teach, and we're going to be there to support him. And then the following weekend, I'm going to see about teaching Dance Center, third week of March.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm teaching a weekly tap dance class there on Wednesday nights. So hopefully I'll catch up with you at Broadway Dance Center too.
Let's get together.
And now here's a
Absolutely.
little question. Yeah, here's a question. Where can we follow your masterclass schedule? Is there somewhere posted where you all of your classes that you're teaching?
Thank you. Actually, Miss Mexico City in the March, and then in the same scattered. The best
All right, Phil, you're breaking up a little bit again, so we're not getting it. Maybe what we can do also is you could just email me this information and then I can put it into another video, or I can do it a post to all my subscribers, and that way they will get the information. And here's somebody from Russia. I'm not sure who it is, but they've taken from us both over in Russia. So all right, I think we're going to wrap this up, Phil. I'm going to remove you from the stream. I'm sorry. I hope that wish we could have had you in here just to say a proper goodbye. If you come back in a second, um, maybe we'll be able to do that. But anyway, that was an amazing interview with Phil LaDuca of LaDuca Shoes, but also talking about his career, how he started as a dancer, the amazing people he worked with, and how he's prolonging the jazz dance heritage, not only in teaching classes, but in terms of his dance shoe company, which allows jazz dancers to perform their art much better. And as he's mentioned, Desmond Richardson said, I can lengthen my career because of wearing these shoes. So his contributions are not only in the dance field, but in many different ways. So excellent interview. This will be archived and be available on my YouTube site. So if you're not watching it live, you will be able to go back and see it at another time. I'm Bob Boross. The name of the channel is My Jazz and Tap Dance Life. And it's a subscription channel. If you like what you see and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It's important that we keep the numbers up. Hit the like button on it. It tells YouTube it's important information, and they will therefore put it into the rotation for other people to see who may be dance oriented. And also you want to click that notifications bell so that way you'll always know whenever we're posting a new video. So that's what we have for you today. A wonderful interview with Phil LaDuca. And certainly we have some things planned for the future to come up with new interviews. So we want to thank you all for watching. Here we go. Hi, Valeria. We had you on a little bit earlier too, dancing in that piece. Okay, it's great to hear from you guys. All right. Okay, that's our broadcast from today. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you very soon in the next video.